If you think your dog feels guilty because he stole a sausage, you are anthropomorphizing him. But if you think animals are incapable of lying, you are dead wrong. Deception is one of the most sophisticated survival strategies in nature, and it is happening right under our noses right now in every forest, ocean, and backyard on Earth. To understand animal deception, we first have to define what a lie actually is. In human terms, a lie is the intentional transmission of false information. In biology, we call this tactical deception. It is not about morality, it is about a fitness advantage. If I can trick you into thinking I am a threat, or that there is food where there isn't, or that I am something I'm not, I win the evolutionary lottery. And the prize isn't a trophy. The prize is survival. The prize is passing your genes into the next generation while your rivals starve, get eaten, or die alone. The most famous master of the lie is the drongo bird of the Kalahari Desert. These birds are small, songbird-sized creatures with a dark secret. They spend their days watching meerkats forage for insects, following them around like a shadow with feathers. When a meerkat digs up a juicy beetle, the drongo swoops down and lets out a distinct alarm call. This call sounds exactly like the warning a meerkat gives when a hawk is circling overhead. The meerkats, terrified, abandon everything and bolt for their underground burrows. The drongo then casually lands, eats the abandoned beetle, and flies off to find its next victim. This isn't just a one-time fluke. Research by Dr. Tom Flower at the University of Cape Town shows that drongos learn to vary their calls. If the meerkats get used to one specific alarm and stop reacting to it, the drongo simply switches to a different one, sometimes even mimicking the specific alarm calls of other species entirely. They are literal con artists with a repertoire. They have identified a cognitive vulnerability in their neighbors, cataloged it, and are exploiting it for personal gain, over and over for years. Some individual drongos have been tracked stealing food this way hundreds of times in a single season. Imagine a con artist so good that the same town keeps falling for the same trick, decade after decade, simply because the trick keeps evolving one step ahead of the suspicion. But deception isn't limited to birds. Look at the cuttlefish. In the mating game, the cuttlefish has a serious problem. Larger, dominant males guard females with a jealous intensity, patrolling the water like bouncers outside an exclusive club. If a smaller, sneaky male tries to approach a female, the dominant male will drive him off immediately, sometimes violently. The smaller male has evolved a brilliant workaround, and it is one of the strangest tricks in the entire animal kingdom. He will change his skin pattern to look like a female on one side of his body, while keeping his male patterns on the other side. He approaches the female, showing his female side to the dominant male. The dominant male sees no threat, just what looks like another female drifting by, and ignores him completely. Meanwhile, the sneaky male presents his male side to the female, effectively courting her right under the nose of his rival, in real time, in the same 3 feet of water. This is visual lying at its absolute finest. It is a living, breathing, two-faced disguise rewritten by the nervous system in seconds. We see this deception even among our closest relatives, primates. In the 1980s, primatologist Frans de Waal documented chimps at the Arnhem Zoo engaging in complex social manipulation that would not look out of place in a human soap opera. One specific female chimp, named Luit, would often suppress her excitement when finding food. Her body would want to scream with joy, but she would remain silent, calm, almost bored-looking, waiting for the other chimps to lose interest and move away before finally consuming her prize in peace. That is not instinct. That is self-control in service of a lie. Even more impressive is the false alarm tactic used by baboons. A young baboon might scream as if it is being attacked by an adult, even when nothing is happening to it at all. When the mother comes rushing to defend her offspring, ready to fight, she often ends up chasing away the other baboons who were hogging a food source nearby. The young baboon, safe and untouched the entire time, then happily wanders over and eats the leftovers. The infant has successfully manipulated its own mother into acting as a weapon for its own greed, turning her protective instincts into a tool of theft. So why don't animals just evolve to ignore these lies? Why hasn't natural selection simply weeded out the gullible? It comes down to a concept called frequency-dependent selection. If a drongo lies too often, the meerkats stop listening, the same way we'd stop believing a friend who cries wolf every single day. If the deception becomes too common, it loses its effectiveness entirely, and the liar starves. Evolution forces a delicate balance. The liar must be rare enough to be believable, but clever enough to maximize the payout when the moment comes. It's an arms race of information playing out in real time. In every generation, with no winner ever declared for good, there is an even more predatory version of this game, one that ends not in a stolen beetle but in death. Certain species of firefly in North America have turned deception into a hunting weapon. Female fireflies of the genus Photurus have learned to mimic the exact flash pattern that female fireflies of a completely different genus use to signal, "I'm interested, come find me." A male from the other species sees the pattern, recognizes it instantly, and flies toward what he believes is a willing mate. Instead, he finds a predator waiting for him, and he becomes dinner. Scientists call these mimics femme fatale fireflies, and the name is not an exaggeration. This is a lie so precisely tuned that it hijacks the exact frequency of another species' mating code, weaponizing attraction itself. Scientists have also discovered honest signals that act as a countermeasure to lying, a kind of biological proof of work that simply cannot be faked. Take the peacock's tail. It is a massive, heavy, and impractical display, dragging behind the bird like an anchor, making him slower, louder, and more visible to predators. Why would a peahen choose a male with such a ridiculous burden? Because the tail is an honest signal. It is so metabolically expensive and difficult to maintain that only a genetically superior, parasite-free, well-fed male can afford the cost. A weak or sick male simply could not grow a vibrant, symmetrical tail, no matter how badly he wanted to. Because it is physically impossible to fake the quality of the tail, the peahen can trust it completely. Deception in nature is usually checked by these high-cost barriers, the same way a counterfeit bill gets caught, the moment someone checks the paper closely enough. But there is a darker, older, and far more permanent side to the animal kingdom that is often overlooked. It is the realm of Batesian mimicry. This is where a completely harmless animal evolves to look exactly like a toxic or dangerous predator, wearing its enemy's uniform as a disguise. The hoverfly, for instance, looks almost identical to a yellow and black stinging wasp, right down to the banding pattern and the frantic buzzing flight. It has no stinger. It couldn't hurt you if it tried. But most birds avoid wasps because they don't want to get stung, and the hoverfly has hijacked that fear completely, wearing a costume it never has to take off. This is a lie so old and so effective that it has been copied and refined for millions of years, passed down not through learning, but written directly into the genetic code itself. Some species have even taken it further, evolving fake stingers, fake antennae shaped like a wasp's, even fake aggressive buzzing, all without a single drop of venom to back it up. There's a similar trick happening on the ocean floor. Certain octopuses and cuttlefish don't just hide from predators, they actively impersonate them. Footage from Indonesian reefs shows octopuses flattening their bodies, tucking in 6 of their arms, and swimming with the remaining 2 spread out like fins, mimicking the exact shape and movement of a venomous sea snake. A predator that would happily eat an octopus takes one look, sees what it thinks is a deadly sea snake, and swims the other way. The octopus isn't just changing color. It is performing an entire physical impression of a different species in real time with no rehearsal. What does all of this tell us about the nature of truth itself? In the human world, we prize truth as a virtue. We teach our children that lying is wrong, that honesty is the foundation of trust and society. But in the natural world, truth is merely a cost-benefit analysis, nothing more sacred than that. Truth is simply the default state, the cheapest option, because deception is energetically expensive and socially risky to maintain. When an animal lies, it is taking a massive gamble every single time. If they get caught, they face social ostracization, a damaged reputation among their own group, or, in the case of the drongo, being permanently ignored by the very prey they depend on for their next meal. We often imagine animals as simple, reactive machines, creatures that exist in a perpetual, thoughtless state of now, responding only to stimulus and instinct. But to be a successful liar, you need something far more sophisticated. You need a theory of mind. You need to understand that the other individual has their own perspective, their own beliefs, and that those beliefs can be deliberately altered by your actions. When a chimpanzee leads his entire troop in the wrong direction, feigning disinterest, only to double back later and sneak away to a hidden fruit tree he discovered days earlier, he is not just reacting to his environment. He is holding a model of what his troopmates believe, and he is actively projecting a false narrative onto their minds, calculating, planning, waiting for the right moment. Even birds that we consider simple show this same chilling sophistication. The piping plover, a small shorebird, will fake a broken wing the instant a predator approaches its nest. It drags itself across the ground, flailing, screeching, looking like the easiest meal in the world. The predator, sensing an effortless kill, follows the injured bird further and further away from the nest. Only once the eggs are safely out of range does the plover suddenly heel. burst into flight and vanish, leaving the predator confused and empty-handed, having been led on a wild chase by an actor giving the performance of its life. Maybe the line between human and animal cognition isn't as thick as we like to believe. Maybe the capacity to deceive is not a corruption of some pure, honest natural state, but is instead a fundamental building block of complex social life itself, present wherever there is competition, cooperation, and consequence. Every time you see a bird feigning a broken wing to lure a predator away from its nest, or a squirrel burying a fake, empty hole while another thief watches, just to protect its real stash somewhere else, remember that you are witnessing a tactical, intentional, calculated distortion of reality, playing out for an audience of one. The next time you look into the eyes of another living creature, whether it's a bird on a fence, a fish in a tank, or the family dog lying suspiciously still next to an empty plate, ask yourself what they might be trying to hide. Nature is not an open book, and it never has been. It is a stage, and every performer on it is trying in their own way to convince you that their act is the real thing. And maybe that question doesn't stay neatly confined to meerkats and cuttlefish and fireflies flashing in the dark. Every signal, every alarm call, every flash of color in the natural world is a piece of information passed from one mind to another, and every one of those signals carries the possibility of being real or being a performance. The drongo didn't invent the lie. It simply found, through millions of years of trial and error, one of the oldest tools in the story of life on Earth. So here is the question worth sitting with. Is truth something that exists independently in the world, waiting to be discovered? Or is it simply the information that hasn't been successfully manipulated yet?